That's my seat. 2 amperes. Window. His voice wasn't loud, but it stopped everything. She didn't even look up. Blonde hair twisted into a perfect knot. Designer blazer the color of champagne. An iced stare hidden behind oversized Chanel shades. She turned her head slowly, tilted her chin, and said it. $K off. This is first class. Asterisk. The entire row turned. A sharp gasp came from the third row back. One man lowered his AirPods. A young Asian woman held her phone just a little higher. The black man standing in the aisle didn't blink. He held a boarding pass in one hand. Direct. Non-stop. Seat 2 amperes. First class. Issued in his legal name. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't shaking. But the way he stood, it made the cabin colder than the air vents ever could. She leaned back in the leather seat, crossed her legs, and said louder, "You don't look like someone who belongs in 2 amperes." The flight attendant started walking over. Red lipstick, clipboard, the kind of smile that folds under pressure. She didn't look at him, not really. She glanced, and then looked at the woman in the seat. "Ma'am, is everything okay?" "He's trying to steal my seat. Probably scanned some cheap printout," the woman hissed. More heads turned. A man in business casual whispered, "Damn." The girl with the phone now had it clearly recording. The black man still stood there, calm as steel. "I didn't scan anything. This is my seat." She laughed. Actually laughed. It cut the cabin like a knife scraping porcelain. "I paid 5 figures for this ticket. You people love to pretend." Those last 2 words didn't land quietly. They exploded in the air like gunpowder and silk. From the cockpit, movement. Another flight attendant was coming forward now. Male, tall, arms crossed, ready for de-escalation. The blonde woman turned to the cabin, inviting the show. "See? This is what they do. Loud, aggressive, and entitled." He didn't say a word. He just raised his boarding pass again, slow, deliberate, then looked her in the eye. "You're sitting in a seat owned by the man you just insulted." A pause. A full second of silence in a moving aircraft. And then someone whispered, "Wait, is this him?" Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus. Marcus Carter didn't flinch. He'd seen this moment coming before he even boarded the plane. He chose that outfit on purpose. A gray hoodie. Jeans. No Rolex. No briefcase. No assistant trailing behind. Just a man with a boarding pass and a plan. Because sometimes, the only way to see how deep the prejudice runs is to give it room to breathe. Seat 2 amperes. A window seat he'd personally booked online under his real name as part of a quiet audit on airline service bias. Not a stunt. A pattern check. Marcus Carter wasn't just a businessman. He was the businessman. Founder and CEO of Carter Global Holdings. Majority stakeholder of this very airline, Apex Airways. 20 years of boardrooms, mergers, acquisitions. And yet, in 2025, all it took to be seen as a fraud was dark skin and a hoodie. He'd walked through the terminal alone. No PR cameras. No special clearance. Just another black man with a boarding pass. And when he got to the gate, he saw her. Seat 2 amperes already occupied. By a woman wearing entitlement like it was perfume. She never looked up when he entered the cabin. Just waved off the steward like royalty waiting for wine. The LV tote bag by her side took more space than any human being ever should. Her heels were pointed toward the aisle like she dared anyone to challenge her right to exist there. Marcus didn't challenge. He simply showed his ticket. And got hit with venom disguised as confidence. "You don't look like someone who belongs in 2 amperes." "No, ma'am." He didn't. Not to her. Because in her world, men like him carried her luggage, not matching seat numbers. But she didn't know him. She didn't know that just 4 hours earlier, he'd sat in a boardroom reviewing this airline's quarterly numbers and flagging rising complaints about seat assignment irregularities. She didn't know that he was the reason this route still had a first class. She didn't know that this trip was his test. And she was failing publicly, confidently, and on camera. The irony? He'd once been her, or rather, he'd been on the other end of her judgment. At 24, flying standby for a job interview, he was denied boarding despite an open seat. No explanation, just a shrug and a glance. "You don't look like a priority passenger," they'd said. That moment never left him. It carved itself into his business DNA. Now, at 38, standing in front of a $7,500 seat he legally owned, it was happening again. But this time, the ending would be different. "Security, please stand by. Possible seat fraud in first class." The words weren't shouted. They were spoken with a smile, the kind of smile that's trained, not real. The flight attendant, Rachel Brunette, 30 seconds, neat bun, badge gleaming, tapped something on her tablet and stepped closer to Marcus. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside. We're verifying seat assignments." He handed her the boarding pass again, calm, still not raising his voice. 2 amperes, paid in full. Marcus Carter. M. She barely glanced at the name, didn't scan the barcode, didn't check the manifest. Instead, she turned to the white woman already in the seat. "Ma'am, can I see your ticket?" The woman patted her bag, not even pretending to reach for it. "It's in the system. I booked this seat weeks ago." He just walked up. Rachel nodded, like that made sense. Like appearances wrote policy. From row 3, a teenage boy whispered, "Mom, is that even allowed?" His mother, clearly uncomfortable, shifted in her seat. In the back, another steward, Brian, came forward. Stocky build, tattoo peeking from under his sleeve. He looked Marcus up and down, then chuckled. "Hey man, maybe you misread your boarding group. Happens." "No," Marcus replied. "What's happening is exactly what I came here to see." Brian raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" Before Marcus could answer, the woman in 2 amperes spoke again. "Honestly, I feel unsafe. He's hovering." A beat of silence. Then Rachel looked at Brian and whispered, "Let's move him before it escalates." Marcus caught every word. He smiled. "You're about to escalate it yourselves." That's when Brian reached for the boarding pass in Marcus's hand, tried to snatch it. Marcus stepped back, not aggressively, just enough. "Don't touch me." Another passenger pulled out their phone. Red light blinking. Camera rolling. Rachel turned. "Sir, there's no need for threats." "I didn't threaten anyone," Marcus replied. "I simply asked not to be touched." And then from 2 rows behind, a soft but firm voice cut in. "I saw his pass. It scanned green. He was here before her." It was a trainee flight attendant. Young, nervous, standing near the galley. Rachel whipped her head around. "Mia, this isn't your call." "Ugh." But Mia didn't back down. "I saw it. His scan was valid. And her name isn't even on the 2 amperes roster." The cabin shifted. Not physically, emotionally. An older gentleman adjusted his glasses. A woman near the window sat straighter. And the boy in row 3 mouthed, "Whoa." Rachel turned back to Marcus. Her smile, gone. "We'll double-check everything." Marcus didn't move. "No rush. I've got time." Marcus didn't argue, didn't explain, didn't defend. He simply waited. Standing in the aisle quiet, composed while 2 flight attendants debated his existence like he was a misprint on the manifest. Brian leaned in again, arms crossed. "Look, man, we're just trying to keep the cabin calm." "Then I suggest," Marcus said, "you stop trying to calm me down and start listening." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Sir, there's protocol." "Then follow it. Verify the manifest." She didn't. Instead, she turned to the white woman still lounging in 2 amperes like it was a throne. "Ma'am, would you be willing to let him sit elsewhere while we sort this out?" "I'm not moving," the woman snapped. "He's making a scene." The irony dripped like turbulence. Marcus closed his eyes for a second, then opened them. Back in 2009, he'd stood in front of another gate agent, wearing a tailored Navy suit, holding a first-class ticket. Still got told, "This line is for priority passengers only." That moment sharpened him. This one refined him. He wasn't here for revenge. He was here for clarity. And the more they spoke, the clearer it got. A tall man in seat 3C, mid-40 seconds, salt and pepper beard cleared his throat. "Excuse me, but if the gentleman has a valid ticket, why is he being asked to move?" Rachel turned sharply. "Sir, we're handling this." "Doesn't look like it," the man replied. From behind him, a younger woman murmured, "They're making him prove he belongs." Again, Marcus stayed still. He could have called his assistant. He could have said one sentence, "Tell them who I am." But he didn't. Not yet. He looked down at the boarding pass still in his hand. Still unscanned. Still valid. He placed it gently on the armrest beside 2 amperes and said nothing. The camera in row 5 kept recording. Mia, the young trainee, stood frozen near the beverage cart. She wasn't supposed to speak. But silence, in that moment, felt heavier than protocol. Marcus finally turned to her, his voice low, calm. Words matter. Don't let theirs be the only one spoken. Mia nodded, barely. Rachel whispered to Brian, "We're calling security, now." And Marcus still didn't move, still didn't raise his voice. He just reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. One tap. No call, no panits. Just a message. The kind that changes everything, quietly. The red light blinked again. This time, it wasn't just one phone. It was 3, then 5, then more. Seat 3 Amperes, the salt and pepper man, now had his phone angled discreetly over his tray table. A young Latina woman 2 rows back whispered, "This is insane," and opened her camera. A teenage boy in row 4 mouthed, "We're going viral," to his sister, already posting to TikTok. And yet Marcus didn't flinch. He wasn't looking at the phones. He was watching Mia. The trainee still stood frozen near the galley, but her eyes had shifted from confused to wide awake, from protocol to principle. "I saw it," she said suddenly. "His pass. It was green." Rachel whipped around. "Mia, you are out of line." "No, I'm not." Mia's voice was shaking but steady. "I scanned it myself. He checked in, passed security, and boarded first." The woman in 2 Amperes scoffed. "You're taking his side now?" "I'm stating facts," Mia replied. And just like that, the energy in the cabin shifted again. One passenger, an older black woman in 3 Farads, closed her book and folded her arm. "Every time it's the same," she said. "Wrong clothes, wrong color suddenly, you're suspicious." Brian's voice cut in hard. "We're not going to debate politics in the cabin." "This isn't politics," Marcus said without turning. "It's pattern." Rachel stepped back toward her tablet, clearly rattled. She tapped a few buttons, stared at the manifest, then lead. "There's no record of a Marcus Carter in 2 Amperes." "Oh," Mia gasped. "You deleted it." "You just deleted it." Rachel didn't answer, but everyone heard it. From the corner of the plane, a voice called out. "I got it on video." It was the teenager. She erased his name. More murmurs. One passenger stood up halfway, then sat down again, unsure. The woman in 2 Amperes suddenly looked very small. "Can I just enjoy my flight?" she snapped. But it was too late. The story had left the cabin. One woman tweeted, "This black man booked first class. They're trying to erase him live." Another post on X read, "Apex Airways, when receipts aren't enough if you're black." The heat wasn't just inside the cabin now. It was outside, traveling at 500 miles per hour across feeds, hashtags, screens. And Marcus? He still hadn't said who he was, still hadn't raised his voice, but everyone else had started speaking for him. Rachel's voice cracked. "Get security. Tell them we have a non-compliant passenger in first class." She didn't name him, didn't say Marcus Carter, just non-compliant. A label meant to erase everything else. Brian reached for the cabin phone, his voice low but clear. "We need ground response at Gate 3 BC on firm immediate intervention." Mia stepped back, stunned. "He's not non-compliant, he hasn't even moved." "You're done," Rachel snapped. "Back to the galley." But Mia didn't budge. "You're deleting records, lying to passengers, and calling security on a man who's just sitting here." That word lying hung in the cabin like turbulence. Brian slammed the receiver down. "We don't take orders from interns." "And I don't take silence from liars," Mia shot back. The woman in 2 Amperes crossed her arms again, legs jittery now. Her voice wasn't strong anymore, it was sharp, defensive. "This is harassment. I've flown this airline for years, he just wants attention." A middle-aged white man across the aisle leaned forward. "No, ma'am. What he wants is the seat he paid for." "Oh." Rachel turned on him. "Sir, please refrain from interfering." "Then stop making it easy," he replied. More phones were out now. Voices rising. Not yelling, just cutting through the air. He never raised his voice. "You didn't even check her ticket. They're afraid of who he might be." And yet Marcus stayed silent. He sat down slowly in the empty seat beside 2 Amperes, not the one he paid for. Just to make space. Just to let them choose their next move. He looked out the window, like it was any other flight. Like this wasn't unraveling in front of him. Rachel whispered to Brian, "Why isn't he yelling?" "Because he knows something," Brian muttered. "I don't like this." In the back, a passenger uploaded the video with a new title. They erased a black CEO's name live on flight Apex 273. Comments exploded. Name him. Expose her. This is what passive racism looks like in a $7,000 seat. Still, Marcus didn't move. He just tapped one more message. Simple, direct, sent. The woman in 2 amperes turned to him, nervous now. What are you doing? He looked at her for the first time and smiled, waiting. The plane hadn't moved, but the air inside had shifted entirely. Heavy, charged, like the moment before a thunderclap. That's when the forward door opened again. 2 airport security officers stepped in crisp uniforms, radio chatter still echoing from their collars. Rachel rushed to meet them. That man. He's refusing to move. We believe the ticket's fake. Marcus didn't look up. He was still seated calmly in 2B, next to the very seat that had started this whole fire. One officer, tall, firm jawline, crew cut, walked down the aisle with practiced authority. The other stayed behind, hand already near his belt. Passengers murmured, "Why are they here?" He didn't even do anything. This is going to go viral. The officer stopped in front of Marcus. "Sir, I need you to stand up." Marcus looked at him. "On what grounds?" "We've been told there's a seat dispute." "Correct. And my name is Marcus Carter. That seat," he pointed to 2 amperes, "is mine." The officer glanced at Rachel, who nodded firmly. "We've verified. There's no Marcus Carter in our system." Then Mia, still near the galley, stepped forward. Voice firm now. "He was in the system. I scanned him. They deleted his name." "Huh?" Rachel snapped. "Mia, one more word." "Delete me then," Mia fired back. "But you're not deleting him." The officer blinked, uncertain now. Marcus reached slowly into his jacket. Passengers tensed, but all he pulled out was a phone. He tapped twice. No sound, just a blue screen with a name at the top. Rachel Lawson, cabin lead. Underneath, live review in progress. The security officer's radio buzzed. Be advised, individual in question is a verified executive-level passenger. Do not engage further. Confirm with ground control. Rachel turned pale. "Wait, what?" The officer took a step back. "Sir, apologize." But Brian, standing just behind, didn't catch the shift in time. He reached toward Marcus's shoulder not to hit, but to guide. And that was the moment. Marcus stood. Not quickly, not angrily, but with gravity, like steel lifting itself. He stepped away from the seat, looked at Brian, then Rachel. "You just laid hands on the owner of this airline." Gasps. From the back of the cabin, a woman shouted, "Say that again." And Marcus did. "My name is Marcus Carter, CEO, majority shareholder of Apex Airways. Every second of this, every deletion, every accusation, every lie has been recorded and broadcasted." Phones raised, mouths open. The woman in 2 amperes looked like she'd swallowed ice. Brian, speechless. Rachel, frozen. Mia, smiling. And Marcus, still calm. But no one doubted what was coming next. Marcus didn't have to raise his voice. He simply turned to the officer beside him, calm as ever. "Thank you for your professionalism. We'll take it from here." The officer nodded slowly, stepping aside like he suddenly realized the gravity of the man standing in front of him. Rachel tried to recover. "Sir, there must have been a mistake in the system." "Number, there wasn't." Marcus cut her off. "You were the mistake in the system." He tapped his earpiece. One simple command. "Rachel, confirm activation. Protocol Echo, 1, full trace, internal audit, live." A pause. Then a voice in his ear, crisp, direct, female. "Echo, 1 confirmed, Mr. Carter. All cabin audio, manifest edits, and badge activity from 3B gate to present are now mirrored to executive compliance and PR legal response. Rachel Lawson and Brian Gates are being flagged for real-time review." Marcus nodded once. Passengers stared. Rachel blinked. "Wait, what's Echo 1? "Echo 1, Marcus said, is the reason your badge won't scan again today." Brian stepped forward, sweating now. You can't do that." "Correction," Marcus replied. "I already did." From the back of the cabin, phones kept recording. The teenage boy from earlier whispered, "This is unreal." His sister added, "No, this is justice." Mia approached slowly, standing beside Marcus now. "Sir, should I send the flight report to legal?" "Already dispatched," said the voice in Marcus's ear. "Social team has clipped the deletion footage, trending within 90 seconds. Hashtag already climbing." Rachel tried to step toward the flight phone, but the green light on the panel blinked, then turned solid red. Locked. Brian turned to the security officer. "Aren't you going to do something?" "I am," the officer said. "I'm staying out of the way." Marcus exhaled slowly, still calm, still composed, then looked directly at the woman in 2 amperes. "Do you have your ticket now?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her hands shook slightly as she reached for her designer tote, but it was too late. Mia turned toward her tablet, now unlocked with admin override. "Sir, would you like me to assign 2 amperes back to your name?" "No," Marcus said. "Let her sit. Let her feel it." He turned back to the rest of the cabin. This wasn't about a seat. It was about assumption. And everyone who made the wrong one just got grounded. Phones were everywhere now. Some people standing. Some tearing up. Even the ones who said nothing were finally listening. Marcus turned slightly. "Not to brag. Not to gloat. Just to be clear. My name is Marcus Elijah Carter, founder, CEO, and majority shareholder of Apex Airways." Silence. Not the kind before applause. Not the kind after a speech, but the kind that sits in your chest like a weight you didn't know was there. "I built this airline from a folding table in my cousin's garage in South Carolina," Marcus continued. "I've flown every route we've ever opened. I've sat in economy, in crew seats, even in jump seats with pilots. But today I chose 2 amperes. The woman sitting in it couldn't meet his eyes. He let that sit, then turned to the passengers. Some of you saw this and stayed silent. Some of you spoke up. That matters." He looked at the teenage boy holding the phone, now trembling. "Keep recording. The world should see not just what happened, but how it ends." Rachel looked like she wanted to vanish. Brian had backed away completely, leaning against the exit like gravity itself had betrayed him. Mia, standing tall, steady. Marcus walked past 2 amperes slowly, deliberately, and stood at the center of the aisle. "I wasn't mistaken, I was erased. On purpose. In front of witnesses with intent." He reached into his pocket again, pulled out a small badge, black with silver trim. "Board Executive, Level 1, Immediate Authority Override." He handed it to the nearest officer. "Use this to unlock all cabin access. And kindly inform corporate that Gate 3B staff is now under full suspension pending termination review." The officer blinked. "Yes, sir." Marcus turned back to the cabin. "To every person who's ever been told you don't belong, this seat's for you." The woman in 2 amperes slowly stood. She stepped into the aisle unsure, rattled, and looked at him with a face full of fear disguised as regret. "I didn't know who you were." Marcus looked her dead in the eyes. "You still don't." Then he turned to Mia. "Assign her the last seat in economy. I want her to experience the walk." Phones lifted again. A wave of murmurs. Some gasps. A few cheers. Marcus sat down in 2 amperes. Finally, he exhaled like a man who had waited years for one deep breath. Outside, the sky was clear. Inside, the message was sharper than ever. Power doesn't always enter the room in a suit. Sometimes, it walks in quietly and owns the plane. When Marcus sat down in 2 amperes, he didn't recline. He didn't adjust his hoodie, didn't straighten his posture. He just existed, comfortably, rightfully, powerfully. And in that moment, the cabin changed shape. Not physically, emotionally. Passengers who had kept their heads down now sat upright. The silence that had once enabled the lie turned into stunned respect. The man in 3C salt and pepper beard cleared his throat, then said softly, "Mr. Carter, I apologize. I should have said something sooner." Marcus didn't turn, just nodded slightly. A few rows back, the Latina woman who first started recording now had tears in her eyes. I've never seen someone handle it like that. Not with rage, with command. "Oh," from behind, the teenage boy whispered, "He's cooler than any Marvel character." His sister didn't even shush him. Mia, still near the galley, looked down at her trembling hand, then looked up straighter than before. "I joined this airline because of him," she said quietly. "Didn't think I'd be defending him on my 2nd week." Someone clapped. Just one person. Then another joined. It wasn't loud, wasn't a standing ovation. Just real, raw. Rachel looked around like the walls were closing in. Her name badge felt heavier now, not because it meant authority, but because it no longer did. Brian backed up again, reaching for the galley curtain. "You should all just calm down," he muttered. "This isn't about race." But someone fired back quick and clean. "No, it's about erasure. A tall black woman in 5D stood up. You thought his hoodie made him invisible. You thought if you deleted his name, you deleted him. But he owns the goddamn airline. Her voice didn't shake. And no one told her to sit down. Because no one could argue anymore. Every lie had been time-stamped. Every bias caught in 4 kelvins. And every passenger on board had just witnessed what quiet power looks like. Marcus turned slightly. Let the cabin settle. We've got a flight to finish. The security officers stepped back through the curtain, already on comms with ground. Mia resumed her post this time, with a confidence no manual could teach. Rachel? Still standing. But smaller now. The woman who had stolen 2 amperes? Gone. Escorted out. Quietly. Marcus took one final glance down the aisle. Sometimes the loudest person in the room isn't the one shouting, he said. It's the one they tried to silence. Marcus tapped once more on his earpiece. A soft beep. The cabin dimmed briefly as the PA system clicked in. But it wasn't the captain speaking. It was corporate. This is executive control. Cabin leadership on Flight 273 is being restructured effective immediately. Passengers looked around. Rachel paled. The voice continued clear, calm, and final. Rachel Lawson and Brian Gates, your access has been revoked. Please disembark with security upon arrival. You are no longer employed by Apex Airways. Silence. Brian started shaking his head. No, you can't. We did, Marcus said quietly. Rachel looked at Mia. For the first time, she looked scared. You don't understand what you've just done, she whispered. Mia straightened her shoulders. I followed the truth. Marcus turned to her, and for that, your promotion starts today. Gasps. The boy in row 4 literally said, whoa, out loud. Marcus nodded at her. Report to HQ this week. New role, assistant flight training lead. You earned it not by obeying, but by seeing. Mia blinked, stunned, then smiled. Rachel moved toward the curtain, but a security officer appeared almost like the system anticipated her exit. She didn't resist, didn't yell, just walked. The sound of her badge being deactivated echoed faintly as she passed the cockpit. Brian followed, slower, broken, unapplauded. Then Marcus addressed the passengers. If any of you ever experience similar treatment, my office is open. The difference between a company that tolerates this and one that acts is who's watching. He paused, looked down the aisle, met every eye. And today you were all watching. He stood, turned to Mia once more. You'll brief the crew, reset the energy, lead the flight. Yes, sir, she replied, her voice steady this time. Marcus didn't sit back down. He walked calmly to the front of the plane, nodded to the captain who had been quietly watching everything, and then turned back to face the cabin one last time. Dignity isn't something we earn by dressing up or calming down. It's something we're born with, and no one, no airline, no uniform, no seat number can take that from you. The seatbelt light turned on. The engines began their warm-up, and for the first time in that entire flight, the cabin finally exhaled. As the plane cut through clouds above Chicago, Marcus looked out the window, not down at the city, not back at the cabin, just forward. In the reflection of the glass, he saw a 2-year-old version of himself, sitting on a Greyhound bus beside his grandmother, watching businessmen in suits get on planes they weren't allowed to afford, watching his grandmother tighten her coat and whisper, "Don't let the world teach you smallness, baby. You were born full-sized." That voice never left him. Not through the mergers, not through the boardrooms, not through this flight. The problem was never the seat. It was what people saw or refused to see when a black man sat in it. He looked down the aisle. Passengers now reading, talking, breathing. No one was whispering anymore. Mia walked past him, focused but lighter. A woman who had found her voice because he didn't raise his. He smiled. The seatbelt light dinged off. The plane leveled, and Marcus leaned back, eyes half closed, arms resting gently on the seat that almost wasn't his, not because of rules, but because of reflexes. That's what today had revealed. Not racism in its most brutal form, but in its most comfortable, disguised as policy, delivered with a smile, backed by silence, until someone says, number. Not with fists, not with fury, but with presence. Unshakable. Undeniable. Unapologetic. That's what Marcus had become, not just for himself, but for everyone watching. The boy in 4B, he'd never forget this. The woman in 5D, she'd remind her daughter someday. Even Rachel, wherever she landed, would carry this story like a mirror she couldn't unsee. And Marcus? He didn't need applause, didn't need revenge. All he needed was proof that the system can correct itself if someone walks in, calm and ready, and refuses to be erased. The seat was never the point, he whispered to himself. The story was, and now it was theirs.